Welcome, everybody. This is the DVMUG Zoom meeting for Tuesday, February 23rd. And these are our videos for today. How to set up the default app for opening files on a Mac, Mac Basics series, user accounts, how to use Do Not Disturb on a Mac, another Mac Basics, the pointer and the cursor, tips for getting the most out of the Finder Sidebar, and keep your online accounts secure using Safari passwords. These are all MacMost videos. So that's all I got there. We'll go to, I don't want to stop sharing. We have a couple of, somebody's phone's ringing. Let's see, we have a couple of questions. First one would be this one. This is from Bill, and he says he can't be here, but he'd like us to know that the lynda.com portal from the Contra Costa Library has stopped working because they changed the name of the lynda.com service, so the library hasn't fixed that yet. I imagine they will, but in case you were trying to do it, that's a heads up. I'm going to put this message into the DVMUG main folder so the other people will see that. Anybody using the lynda.com?
The lynda.com thing hasn't worked from the San Francisco library portal for months now, for that same reason.
Could be.
They've got a tech note up about that too.
They changed it from lynda.com to LinkedIn Learning, but I thought they did that a while ago.
They did. It went down after it. That's not why it went down. Maybe it had to do with, who knows, accounts or something.
Maybe he hasn't used it for a while. We'll see. I haven't tried. I never really did use it much, but it did work. Okay. Anybody else have any experience with that that's using that, not being able to get in, or does everybody know what that is, lynda.com? It's a free service.
I used it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I used to cost money, but you can use it through the library for free. It's kind of like MacMost. It has training videos from actual professional people, like Bert Monroy on Photoshop, and Derek Story on photography, and Jason Snell, and you know, well-known people. Okay.
Yeah, I took a I was working on a intro to Mac coding course on there. It was great.
Okay, is Marjorie here?
Yes, she's here.
Unmute yourself, Marjorie. Let's talk about your question. Marjorie?
Okay. Well,
so what system, the first thing is, what Mac OS version are you using?
I'm using the latest one.
Okay, well,
let me see.
Did you Super Duper doesn't work anymore on Big Sur. Carbon Copy Cloner does work with certain caveats. There was a Tidbits article that came out this morning about this, and I will post it in the MailChimp Sunday. I did try Carbon Copy Cloner when they first said it worked, and I did make a clone and boot off of it, and it did work. But what I read today when I went back and looked is, yes, it works the first time, but it doesn't work the second time without erasing the whole thing and starting over. Except they have a new feature where you can just clone the data, because there's two partitions: the system, which is not touchable by you, and then the data partition, which includes all your apps and your data. And you can do that separately. So yes, it will still be bootable, but the system wouldn't be up to date. So I don't know when they're going to fix Super Duper.
Well, what do you do for backing up your Mac?
You have Time Machine, I hope.
Yeah, I have Time Machine, but.
Well, Time Machine is what you use, and Super Duper is another way to do it, a second backup. I use Carbon Copy Cloner. You already paid for Super Duper, right?
Yes.
I would just wait till he fixes it. If you have Time Machine, you have a backup.
Okay.
You can.
You see that they're working on this the Super Duper is working on fixing up?
Supposedly Apple has to do something to fix this so they can do it properly.
Apple?
You can read the tidbits article that will be in Sunday's MailChimp. It has explains all what's going on.
Okay,
I wouldn't go pay for Carbon Copy Cloner just to do this. You already have Time Machine.
okay,
You should, for anybody who's not using Carbon Copy Cloner or Super Duper as your backup and you're not running Time Machine, that's a bad idea. You should always have Time Machine because that covers you every hour and doesn't throw anything away. If you have a problem and you clone your drive, it clones the problem. So if you throw something away or do something wrong and you clone it, then the same problem exists and you don't have any older versions of stuff. So Carbon Copy Cloner has a feature where you can, I forget what they call it, I've never used it. It's actually on by default with a checkbox, which does keep a little, I forget what they call it, a little cache file of the older files, sort of like Time Machine, but I've never used that feature.
well, would you recommend that I use two external hard drives and alternate them or something? In
Your
case
Time Machine should always be plugged in whenever your computer's on.
Yes, but I just have one hard drive for external hard drive for that. Should I have a second one that I sort of,
You're putting Super
Alternate.
Duper on the same drive as Time Machine?
no, I have a separate dedicated one for my Time Machine. I only have
Right.
one external hard drive for my Time Machine.
Right. And you have one for Super Duper.
I have several for the Super Duper that I used to
Okay, that's correct.
alternate.
For anybody that can, I think you can do it where I know Carbon Copy Cloner can do it, maybe Super Duper. You can run your clone onto the Time Machine drive, but that's kind of
Yeah, I don't.
ridiculous because if your drive dies, you lose both of them and it's all gone.
Right.
You don't want to do that. It is technically, I believe, possible, but
The
not a
feature
good idea.
the feature you're trying to think of, which I always have on, is called Safety Net.
Yeah, that's it.
Copy Cloner.
Yeah, and you can do that, and it acts like Time Machine. It makes a separate folder where it keeps the older files.
As space permits.
Yeah, you can do that.
How does
I
one
never
set
do
that
it.
up?
That's what to me, that's what Time Machine's for. If you're using Time Machine anyway, you already have that feature, so you don't really need to do it.
Okay,
me.
thank you.
But the more redundancy and backups, the
Yeah,
better.
it's actually on by default. If you do a new, it's checkbox is on by default. Okay, that handles those.
So
And-
can I ask a question along these lines?
Yep.
So I'm still on Catalina. I recently cloned a drive, a spinning hard drive, and from my internal drive, and Carbon Copy Cloner told me that in order for it to be bootable, it has to be was it FTFS?
AFP, the new file format, yeah.
Yeah, and when I did that, I reformatted FTFS. Did I say that right? But then it won't automatically unmount because there are 2 volumes. So the Mac always wants to
Right,
have,
so
you
in
have 2
Catalina,
volumes, you want
well,
it.
this is true whether it's spinning or not. Catalina and Big Sur, there are 2 volumes. You don't see the system volume. If you go into disk utility, you see it. And if you boot off an older system, you will see the 2 volumes. There's a system and a data volume. And your system volume, that's why when you install Catalina and Big Sur, the first time you'll see a recovered items folder, and you'll say, what the heck is that? If you were someone who stored files on the root level of the hard drive, which you're not supposed to do, this will come back to bite you in the butt because those aren't owned by you. They're not in your user folder. So since they're on the system and that's now split into 2 volumes, it takes those files and moves them into a recovered items folder so you can find them because you're no longer able to access them on the system. So
Yeah, what I'm saying is when you have an external drive that's FTFS, since you have 2 volumes, when you go to unmount it,
Then
a
unmount the other
dialog
one.
box pops up that says you have 2 volumes. Do you want to unmount them both?
Right.
And so I say, if I'm doing it manually, I say yes, and it unmounts, no problem. But when carbon copy cloner goes to automatically unmount after it backs up to that volume, I assume that it stays on the desktop, and I assume it's that dialog that's keeping it from unmounting it.
I don't have that problem, and I'm not doing clones. I don't have a problem with not cloning the system because I don't particularly do that anyway. I clone my documents folder, so I'm kind of cloning a subset anyway, because that's all I really care about.
So I'm wondering if I want that drive to even be bootable. Do I need it to be bootable, or could I boot from somewhere else if I needed to restore? And should I have?
You could. They explain that in the Tidbits article.
What's
It
that?
doesn't really need to be. The Tidbits article talks about that. Do you really need to have it be bootable?
Okay.
And if it is bootable, does it need to be the latest version that boots? No. It's your data and your apps are current, but your system is old. You restore and then you re-update the system. They also say you can go ahead and clone it and then keep it up to date by then installing Big Sur on top of your clone system to get the current system. It's more work. And they'll eventually, they say it's an Apple security thing and they're working on it. They know people want to do this. They're going to work it out eventually.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, one time I was on, when Rick was on and I was talking about I'm going to get a new MacBook Air. And he's talked about getting all this equipment and I'm not sure I got this right. So I'm going to ask about the backup drive. He said a Seagate backup drive plus 5 TB external hard drive. Do you agree with that?
That's ridiculous.
5 terabytes
Why would you need a 5 terabyte backup
What?
drive?
I thought
for
the same
a
thing.
MacBook Air?
But
which storage size did you get on the MacBook Air?
I only got what I have now, there's 63, I think, because I don't have a bunch.
No, by default, the new computers, the M1 computers come with 256,
Oh, they do? Okay.
unless you pay more, $200 a step to go from 256 to 512.
Okay.
Depends on
So,
how much data you have.
So
5
what,
terabytes is a ridiculous amount to back up 256
well,
gigs.
that's, yeah.
That's
okay.
20 times as much as you have.
right, so
And
maybe.
the brand
like,
is
it's hard
irrelevant.
to find a 1 terabyte drive, but that would literally be enough. Nowadays, I think the sweet spot for price point is 2 terabytes.
Yeah,
2 terabytes.
It's
would
not
be
much more
fine.
for a 2.
Okay, and do you agree with the Seagate Plus?
The brand of the drive makes no difference.
Oh,
It's
does it?
generic. No,
Not really.
they're
Well,
all
Chris
pretty
may
much the same.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
So when you say Seagate Plus, you probably mean Seagate plus Hub. Seagate Backup plus Hub, I think is the name of the drive you're talking about, right?
I don't know, they were talking about me getting a MacBook Mini, which I'm glad I didn't get. And he started spitting all this stuff I needed. And I was typing as fast as I could, but I was trying to type and listen. And so I'm not sure I got all the correct information.
So I have a guy who I worked on his what does he have, a MacBook Air, and it had 256 gig drive in it. And he only had like 100 gigs of data, and he had an 8 terabyte Time Machine drive. It's like, how many times bigger is that? That's 8 times 50 times bigger than it. No, that's 100 times bigger than the amount of data that he has.
But the
Complete
thing about
waste.
Time Machine is the bigger the drive you have, the more historical backups you have going back.
Right.
way
So you
back.
want something that's
And
at
that's a
least
good thing.
2 times as big, but not 50 times as big.
But they're so cheap, why not?
Well,
Oh, no, wait a minute. An 8 terabyte is not necessarily that cheap. The bigger you go in drives, the more size they get.
How much should I be paying? How much should I pay for one?
2 terabyte drive on Amazon goes from what, like $70?
Okay.
And
What about B&H? That's where I'm getting the computer from.
You can get it at B&H too.
Okay.
My 8 terabyte Seagate backup plus hub drive was $120 on sale at Costco.
What is a backup hub drive? What does that mean? Is that the same
So-
like time machine?
Well, Seagate has this line of drives that are called Seagate backup, meaning they're primarily intended for doing backups onto, because they write a little slow compared to the fastest drives. And plus hub means it actually has a couple of USB hubs on the front of it so that you can connect other things to it, so you don't
Okay.
use up all. So it has a hub built into it, a USB hub.
That could be handy.
We
And
can?
you don't, some people want to think they want to get an SSD drive for a backup.
No.
That's a complete waste, because Time Machine is not any faster on an SSD than it is on a spinning drive. And what you want for Time Machine is size, not speed. So SSDs are more money per size. You buy an 8 terabyte SSD, I don't even know if they make them. 4
Yeah.
terabytes get up into the couple hundred.
Was that what I was searched for then? Just call it time machine? Do I call it
No.
time machine?
Time Machine is the name of the software that
Oh.
comes with the Mac
Oh,
that makes the backup.
yeah.
There is no such thing as a piece of Time Machine hardware. It's just
Okay.
a hard drive.
You want an external hard drive that has a spinning platter, one of these small guys
Yeah,
like this.
yeah.
And the newer ones have cables that are have the USB 3 on this side,
Okay,
but then USB-C going into the computer.
Yeah, your new computer will have USB-C. So
So you want a 2.5-inch external hard drive.
okay.
If you get a bigger one, it has its own power supply brick, and these
want that with a
run
laptop.
off the cable. This nothing to plug in. Just plug it straight into the
Okay.
computer.
And I don't have to do all that stuff that Rick did with mine where I had to fool with it. I can just plug it in, it's gonna work, right? I don't have-
no, you'll have to format it for the Mac, because they come
Oh,
formatted
yeah,
for a
yeah, but
PC.
that's easy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want a hard drive, a 2.5 external hard drive, and you don't care about the brand? No brand, no
No. I
preference?
usually just go to Amazon and type in external hard drive, and you'll pop right at the top. There'll be a couple of brands, a couple of prices. Around 2 terabytes is about, $70.
Okay, thank you.
If you shop at Costco,
I don't.
Costco is a really
I-
good place for getting stuff like that.
I don't,
because-
I dropped my membership. We don't go there
Okay.
often enough.
Never
You
mind.
probably have to buy a 2-pack though. I bet you
Janet's
they do.
got
I
a-
bet you they don't sell single
They
small hard.
do.
They probably.
They do.
John, Janet Chesney has got her hand up.
Thank you. I wanted, Elise, did you say you were gonna get a new computer with 256 gigabytes?
Yeah, the MacBook Air, the basic computer off the shelf has 256 gigabytes.
That's
But
not a
that's
lot.
too
You need to check
small.
and see how much data you currently have to see how
Yeah.
tight you are. This
Okay,
computer's going to last for many years.
it
You might
better.
want to.
Probably gonna outlast me.
Well,
You
you
might
can pay more to
wanna-
get 512.
Right, it's $200 more to go to the
I
next
don't
step.
need that. I don't need $5. Whatever
Well,
I
don't-
ordered,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I ordered it from B&H and then
No,
now I'm
hold
back.
on. How much data, how much space are you currently using on your computer? That determines how much you need.
Okay, I'll look at it. I'm not much. I'm not anywhere near the end. I've looked at it.
Well, that's because your current computer, what is your current computer?
It's a 2000, I don't know. It's old, a 2014 MacBook Air.
All right, so it probably came with a 256 then.
Just do a get info on the hard drive.
Or go to the Apple menu, about this Mac, and
Right.
the storage tab will tell you
Right.
the size of the drive and how much you're using.
Okay.
Don't you keep any photos or music?
Some people
I
don't have
music.
anything.
I'm one of the few people, no music, no music.
A lot of people have less than 100 gigs of data. It's amazing.
Wow.
No videos, no movies, no nothing.
Yeah, tell us how much you see in there.
Okay, when I go in, will I cut you off?
No, just go to the Apple menu, to System Preferences.
Okay, Apple.
No,
menu.
not System, excuse me, About This Mac.
I'm on the Zoom meeting though. It's not opening it. You mean I have to get
Okay.
off Zoom to do it?
No,
Go to the Apple menu in the top left corner of the screen
I'm trying to.
and go to About This Mac.
It's not doing it. I'll do it later. I'll send you a text or an email or something about this Mac.
You
I know
should be
I-
able to do, you should be able to do this. So I'm going to show you how you do this.
Okay,
So do you see the Apple menu up here?
I
in the
do
top
see
left?
the Apple menu.
Do you see the word About This Mac?
It's so
The
tiny.
first thing.
Apple menu.
The Apple menu, you can't get rid
Okay,
of it. It's always there.
got it. About this Mac.
About This Mac. And you will see this.
Okay,
Then you click on storage and it'll tell you the size of your drive and how much you're using.
oh,
right
okay,
here.
it's doing stuff. Okay, it's doing stuff. Okay, it says I have, I don't have Big Sur, but it says,
Mine says it's 128 gigabytes and I've used 50. Oh, no, I
Mine
have
says-
47 available of 125. What does yours say?
mine's saying I have 28.1 gigabytes available of 125.4.
So you only have a 128 gig.
Yeah,
Oh, you've
probably.
got 256, because look at the logo to your left.
This is
there,
my old,
John.
this is my old one I'm
250.
looking
See, it
at.
says
All right, so
251.
what is, read me the words. It says how much is available of how much?
It says, oh, wait a minute, it's not, it's looking at the MacBook Pro.
Yes.
Well, is that my same as my MacBook Air here? It says I've got 28 GB available of 125.4 GB. Use
Okay,
space.
so what you have is what's called a 128 gig
Yeah,
SSD and you're only using 28. So a
No, she
256
said-
is fine.
she's using
No,
100, John.
28 left.
28 left.
Available, 28
28
available.
left or 28 in use?
28
No, it says
available.
available.
oh, available, you're right, it does say available,
All
sorry. I'm
right, so
very
you'll
tired
find,
today.
so if you weren't gonna upgrade, you would be considered getting full. Because that's pretty
Okay.
close to not being okay.
Okay,
But the one you're gonna get, the smallest one you can get now is a 256. So you're gonna double the size and then you will have like 128 additional plus your free space here. So you will be fine.
with the backup drive of 2 terabytes, correct?
Overkill, but don't buy a one that's only 10 or 20 bucks cheaper.
Okay, all right, thank you.
People really got to pay attention to this before they buy it. Some gal came to the clinic once, her hard drive was full, and so she went and bought a new computer, an Air, and it came with a 256 gig drive in it. But guess what? She came to the clinic. She had like 700 gigs of data in a it used to be spinning drives were 1 terabyte standard. So there was no way to put 700 into 256. It wasn't going to work. So she had to send it back, take it back. She bought a 1 terabyte SSD and we put it in her old MacBook Pro. Problem solved for way less money.
But in the
So-
new computers, you can't do that. You're stuck with what you bought. right?
The new computers, you can't do that. The older Airs, like the one we just looked at, what she told us, they are upgradable. This one here, you can still see my screen. It came with a 128, but I got a deal from OWC for one on sale. It was half price, so I paid 50 bucks for a 256, doubled the space, and then I split it into 2. So this one has Big Sur and this one has High Sierra, so I can go back and run my old Photoshop. Because the SSDs are much, a 256 on sale was 50 bucks, but a 256 that goes a 2.5 inch, and you get those from Amazon, what are they, Chris, 25 bucks for a 256.
Right.
Right, so they're
Kingston.
normally the list price of this was like 75 bucks. It's like
This
three
is
times what
$25
a
for 240
2.5
gig.
inches. So
when I bought this, I was getting all sorts of viruses on a Windows machine. So I went into Apple. I knew nothing about Apple. If it hadn't been for you guys, I wouldn't have survived it. So I didn't know what I was buying. I just bought whatever the guy told me to buy.
Yeah, you go in there and buy whatever they got.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shock because for years and years and years, they came with a 1 terabyte spinning drive as default. Now they come with a 256 SSD. So they're 1/4 of the size. So you got to pay attention to what, because this computer is going to last for many years.
I hope so. Probably outlast me.
And so people who collect data, for another 5 years, they're going to, double their data. They could consider how big a SSD to get, because it's $200 a step. Every 256 you go up. So it goes 256, then 500. Then if you want to go to 1 terabyte, it's another $200. So to get back to your 1 terabyte, it's a $400 addition to the base units, all of them. So.
Well, how many terabytes is this new one going to come with?
256 gigabytes, that's 1/4 of a terabyte.
So is it going to be sufficient?
You're currently getting by with a 128, which is
Okay.
1/8 of a terabyte.
Okay,
So it's going to be twice as big as we're current.
okay.
So that'll probably last you at the rate you're doing things.
Okay.
The other thing is, these have USB 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports. So if you do need more space, you can plug in an external drive that's just as fast as the internal. It's just
Okay.
not as convenient. So yeah, OWC started making bootable Thunderbolt 4 drives and blade cases to put generic blades in. So I'm considering getting one of those for $150. I think you buy their case for $75. You buy a Samsung Evo top of the line, $500 for $75. So $150, you get a 500 gig USB 4 bootable blade SSD. Not a bad deal.
Rick, John, what does the blade mean? I don't know what are you
A
referring to?
blade type SSD that goes in not the current computers, but the last 5 years, the MacBook Airs and the Pros. It's a special stick that looks like the old RAM. There's one right there. That's a 128 that I pulled. It looks like the old RAM in the old days, except the pins are not on the bottom. The pins are on the end. And this is not RAM. This is storage. This is a 128 gig solid state hard drive with data on it that boots the computer. And this is what goes in these MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros until they went to the more recent ones. So they didn't make these as upgradable. From Apple, didn't have upgrades for a long time. Now Mac Sales does sell these, and you can get them anywhere from 256 up to like 2 or 4 terabytes. They get really expensive, but you can get them. And they're 1 screw. See the little hole here? Right here is 1 screw that holds it in. So you 12 screws on the back, you take the back off, and you put this in, 1 screw, half an hour, you got an upgrade. And you're good to go. So I can't remember. This is a 2015 over here. Like this one's a 2015. I did it to this. There's different. These aren't even standard between Apple computers. As they went along in years, they changed these, and they don't fit in the old computers. So you have to know which model computer you have. Like this one, I wrote on it today, so I know what it fits. It fits a MacBook Air 6,1 and 7,1. And the MacBook Pro 11,1 to 11,5. That's like a couple years worth, but it doesn't fit in my other MacBook Air. It's just the way it is. But you can do it now, so it is doable.
So what's the most cost-effective external SSD, say for 1 or 2 terabytes?
The fastest ones are the Samsung Evos.
Not the fastest, the most cost-effective.
Kingston.
I've
would
been
it be
buying them
those
off of
things? Would it be
Amazon.
those spades?
I've been buying
Or-
Kingstons, and I bought some PNYs. They've sold a lot of them on Amazon, and they're highly rated. They're about the same price as the Kingston.
Already in as an external drive, or can you get them
You
as,
buy them raw,
Hey.
and then they just go that. Here's one here.
okay,
This is the 120 that I pulled out of something. It's the same form factor as a spinning drive.
okay,
And then you put them in these standard these cases that they go in are like $10 on Amazon.
okay.
So you buy the case and buy whatever drive you want. You can switch the drives out of them in like 2 minutes. In fact, one of them I have, Rick turned me on to, no tools, that just slides out, you pop it in. It's like a toaster with a little cover on it. So yeah, and they come with the cable, these cables that Ann showed. These cables that with this little connector there on the end, and that's pretty common on these little 2.5-inch drives in a standard USB. So these are USB 3s.
Right.
They boot pretty fast. You'll be amazed. Just
Um,
bad.
I'm
So
looking
if
on
it's
Amazon.
open,
Kingston 960 gigabyte is $108.
That's a
Gee.
1 terabyte.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty close to 1 terabyte. 960 gigabytes, so 108.
That's a pretty good price. And then an Evo, Samsung Evo is more.
Yeah.
And there's different models of Evos as they get faster and you pay more, right? There's a 950, 960, 970.
No, I think
Or
this
they
new
just change the model
generation.
numbers as they go
I
on.
just bought an 870 Evo. Can you see that?
I think that's the newest
That's a
one.
brand new model that just replaced the 860s. I've got 860s in everything, and now I've got an 870. They just came out in the last month. In fact, this one I don't think you can get on Amazon until March 1st, or there's an inflated price or something.
The generic blades that Samsung makes,
Yeah,
they
they're
fit in
970.
generic. That's what Max Sales is showing. It's what do they call it? NVR or something or something.
NVMe or something.
It's
isn't
what
it?
PCs use.
Yeah.
And they sell a generic case to put whatever blade generic. You put the Samsung in their fast case. It's Thunderbolt 4, bus powered, bootable. I'm real tempted to get one of those.
All right, do we have other general questions before we move on to videos? We can talk about our shopping adventures afterwards.
Bruce has got his hand up, and Howard.
Got to unmute.
Bruce, go ahead, Bruce.
I read on BBS, somebody was looking for instructions on how to program an old AT&T phone.
Yeah,
Two
I know.
lines.
You posted an answer. He'll see it.
Okay,
Oh, that was Kenji.
Kenji.
That was Kenji.
Oh, yeah,
His email.
that, but I finally figured it out for myself.
Okay,
When in doubt, what you do with that is find the model number on the back, type it into Google. It's like manual PDF.
Yeah,
It's
I
out
did
there, you'll
that.
find it. You
I
can
did
find
that,
it.
but this phone is so old. It's an old
Yeah.
it's an old POT phone that there was nothing like that there. I mean, I don't have, this phone's probably from the 70s or something. But my pandemic unemployment insurance got cut off for some unknown reason. They're accepting my weekly reports, but they're not paying me. And so I needed to be brute force trying to get them down. So it's impossible to reach anyway, the long story, but I figured it out for myself.
Okay, who else had one? Howard
Did the
had his.
instructions work for the phone? Kenji,
that?
did the instructions work for the phone?
Oh, I don't know. I figured it out for myself. I just
Oh,
needed to. I
Okay,
just need to figure out the order of pushing the buttons for saving one-touch
right.
numbers.
right. This should work.
Anybody else got anything? We got 6 videos, so we should.
Yeah,
move on.
Howard.
John, I had one question. You showed your computers where you split and you have 2 different operating systems on it.
Yeah,
I have a 2015 MacBook Pro. I've got
that's what this
200
is.
Excuse me?
That's what this is.
And I got 250 gigabytes memory. Right now, I don't have a lot of space. I got to get rid of a lot of photos, but I've got 11 gig available, but that's all. I'm going to load a lot of pictures off. But how do I?
That's not your answer, Howard. You need to upgrade this hard drive. You have the same thing I have. You need to get one of these Blade SSDs and put it in there. You're never going to remove enough stuff to. 11 is dangerous. You cannot run a Mac OS system update with 11 gigs. It won't let you do it.
It's very slow, and I know it. And I've started doing it, but I've been dumping all the pictures onto.
The answer is do not try to dump things to, it's not gonna work. It's
The-
full.
the
You need to get
operating
a
sys-
bigger drive.
Yeah, the operating system is 12 gigabytes.
It's gonna, I bet you're not running Big Sur. You couldn't run a Big Sur
No,
update
I'm
on
not-
that
No, I'm not on Big
because
Sur.
there's not enough space. You gotta have like 30 gigs of free space to run the Big Sur update.
Yeah, I'm not on Big Sur. I didn't want
I
to do
know.
that. But
Anybody who has 10 gigs of free space on their computer should shut it down and not use it until they figure it out.
I have Mojave. I have
Doesn't matter
Mojave.
what system you have. 10 gigs is not enough to run the computer.
Okay,
Its
so if I
computer is
can,
choking.
Especially
can-
your SSDs, you're damaging the SSD running in that low.
Yeah, you're making things worse and worse and worse.
but I want to move my photos, delete them from the computer after loading them into what is it?
Copy your entire photos library.
You can move your
folder
entire
onto
photo
another
library
drive.
off to an external drive, a
Yeah.
massive, and not store any of your photos on there. That would do it.
Yeah, I've been moving them up to Google Photo before the.
That doesn't do it. You cannot move your photos to Google Photos and delete them from your computer. Then there's only one copy of them in the cloud on a service that you don't control. What if they shut Google Photos down? You have no photos.
Okay, but what about my backing up that I've been doing?
If you want to move your photos, you need to move your entire photo library to another external drive and have 2 copies of it on 2 external drives.
I can do
Then
that.
you can remove it from your internal.
Okay, I delete them eventually to make the space.
If you have your photos stored on 2 separate devices that you were in possession of, you may remove them from your internal drive.
Okay, I do my Time Machine on a 2 terabyte WD drive. Is that one of them?
If you don't care much about your photos, you can do whatever you want. I'm just
No, but is that
telling you that
what you're
I
saying?
do
No,
not
Time
recommend
Machine,
that.
If you were to move your photos to another drive, Time Machine would no longer be backing them up because Time Machine only backs up your internal drive.
You can have it
by-
back up the
by-
external, but
by
it needs to be
default.
connected all the time, and you need to tell it, make sure it does that.
Yeah, I don't have the drive. I know Rick says have the external drive on there all the time for Time Machine. I don't. I
Okay.
put it on there every a week or two. And I
The
back
proper
up.
way to solve this problem is to replace the internal drive. You have 256. It's not enough. You should get a 512 from OWC, and that will fix the problem.
Okay, is that something that I could do myself, or I have to wait till we
You
get
can
rid of
try.
the
You have
pandemic?
to clone your drive. The problem with the SSD is it doesn't fit in a standard case, these blade things. Unless you pay $75 for the case for this, you can't clone it. So what you do is you clone it to a regular spinning drive, install the new 512, and then clone it back, is the way I accomplish it.
I'm going to talk to you when we don't have a whole bunch of people's time tied up right now. But okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Chris, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? now?
Fire it
Okay.
up.
Will do. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Uh-oh, I never made you co-host when you came in. Okay.
I came in
Did
late, so
not.
maybe.
Okay. You should be good.
Yeah, got it.
All right.
All right, just quickly show you. How's that for speed? Is that better, John?
Yeah, what did you do to make that? Fix that?
I ran speed test before Zoom on Safari. On Safari, it runs like 200 megabits per second faster. So the network was fast, just for some reason, Firefox just isn't as fast.
Jeez, man.
Do you have the speed test app?
Yeah, I do, but not on this. I haven't installed on this computer yet.
Yeah, Speed Test makes an actual app.
Yeah, I know.
It's in the
I saw
App
it.
Store.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you want even higher speeds, try speedup.me.
This is plenty fast enough.
That'll give you bigger numbers.
Speed test.
Yeah, there's the
You
app.
just made all of us ashamed.
All right,
You
it
can
says
get
it's-
these speeds from, I wonder if, is this powered by Sonic?
Yeah, sonic.net.
Yeah, Sonic, if Sonic is available, if you have AT&T fiber in your neighborhood, you can get this Sonic service. It's this gigabyte symmetrical up and down. And
Mhm.
it comes with phone service, whether you
Look
like
at
it or not.
Ping 2 milliseconds.
Yeah, look at that. It's picking the meter.
Look at that.
This is what kills me is the upload speed.
It's off the
My
meter. The meter only goes up to
goodness.
500. I got 700.
And, it,
Dude,
and it's
now he's
also,
showing
there's also no, it's not metered. There's no bandwidth,
No,
not bandwidth.
no,
There's
no.
no data cap.
no data cap. Is that fast enough for you guys?
And
So
how
you
much
can
you
do
pay
anything
a
you
month
want.
for that?
You can do everything on there.
How much do I pay for
Gold
that?
standard.
Yes.
All in, taxes and everything, $60 a month.
Yeah.
One more time, please. $60 a month, did you say?
Yes.
Yep. Go to sonic.net and see if it's available in your neighborhood.
Yeah, sonic.net.
It's
You
not.
could
That's the
dump your TV,
problem.
your phone and everything and do everything on there.
Mhm. Okay.
Here I am in the middle of San Francisco in, basically Silicon Valley, and I don't have fiber available.
Wow.
We have 3 fibers here. We have Wave, AT&T, and Sonic comes over the AT&T. And then we also have Comcast, which is not fiber, but they offer, I think, gigabit also. But Sonic is gigabit up too, not just
Mhm.
down.
Yeah, up
And
and
they
down.
give you the phone whether you like it or not.
Mhm.
You probably don't even use it, right? You don't even know what the number is.
No, I don't have their modem. They provide you with, no, not their modem, but they provide you a box with phone line. I said, nope, don't want it. And then the guy was insistent on giving it to me. So I took it and then I phoned him up, said, come and collect it. I don't want it. So I don't have their box. I literally have a tiny little doohickey like this, which converts the fiber to Ethernet, and that Ethernet goes into my house, and then I distribute it around the house.
Mhm.
And so I don't pay the monthly fee for the box.
Oh, you don't rent it.
No, I don't rent it.
But you rent the Sonic
No, that's free.
fiber
That's
box,
just-
that's included.
that's included. It's a little nothing box like that with a little wire in it. It's tiny little white box. Just
Yeah.
converts from fiber to Ethernet. That's it.
Yeah. you
And
do
it's
all
not
your-
even in the house. It's kind of on the outside wall of the house, on the outside of the garage behind the panel, like where the fiber comes in.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
There
cool.
you go. All right, let's get up to the main back. Is this this is the first one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to start the video?
We've talked about this before. This is how to set up default apps for opening files. So if you want to dump Microsoft Word, you've been using it and saving DOC or DOCX files, and you want to upgrade past Mojave to Catalina or Big Sur, and you have Microsoft Office 2008, that'll no longer work. You can use LibreOffice, and you can set LibreOffice to automatically open your DOC files and save DOC files, and you won't know the difference. It'll just work. You can still share them with other people and such. And this is how you set the default out.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let me show you how you can choose which application is used to open up a document and how to set the default for that file type. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to macmost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So often when we want to open up a document, we simply find it in the Finder, double click it, and it will open up in its default app. But how does it know which app to use to open up the file? And how can you choose another one? For instance, here I have 4 files. This one here is an image. If I were to double click it, it would automatically open up in the Preview app. But what if I wanted it to open up in a different app? After all, I have many apps on my Mac that can handle image files. One way to open up a document in any app that can handle it is to simply open up the app first. So for instance, I'll open up Pixelmator Pro here. and I can go to File, Open, and then choose the file I want to open. Here I am in my example files folder. I could now select that file, open, and now I've opened it up on Pixelmator even though it's not the default app and the one I get when I double click. Another way to do it would be to drag and drop it to the application. So let me open up a new Finder window. In that new window I'll go to the Applications folder, and here I'll find a variety of different apps. Like for instance there's Affinity Photo. I could simply drag and drop this to Affinity Photo and it will launch Affinity Photo and open up the image in that app. Now to make this easier you can add the app to the dock. So I can take Affinity Photo here, drag it to the dock, add it in, and now I could use that as the place to drag the file. So I can drag this file down to the dock, drop onto Affinity Photo, and it will open it up in that app. But there are more ways to do it. For instance, you can control click on the file or 2-finger click on a trackpad or right click on a mouse to bring up the context menu. Then you get an open command, and open works just like double clicking the file. You can also go to File and Open or Command O to do that. But below Open is Open With, and then you'll get a list of all of these different apps starting with the default app at the top, but other apps that say they can handle this kind of file. Now what each app does with the file may be different. For instance, here I see 3 browsers, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari, and if I open up the image in those I'm just going to be able to view the image. But if I opened it up in Photoshop, Acorn, Pixelmator, or Affinity Photo, then I'm going to be able to edit and manipulate the image. So I can select Acorn here and it will open it up in Acorn. This may be the quickest way to deal with it. After all, for something like an image you may want to open it up with different apps in different situations all the time. The default isn't as important because the situation you're in is going to determine which app you want to use. So bringing up the context menu using Open With is the best way to do it. But let's say I did want to change the default app for opening this kind of file. If I hold down the Option key with this menu open, notice Open With changes to Always Open With. And then I can select an application like Pixelmator, and now it opens that up in Pixelmator as before. The difference is that if I look again at this file under Open With, you can see Pixelmator is now the default. And if I just double click it, it will actually launch Pixelmator and open it up. To switch back I would simply bring up the context menu again, go to Open With, hold down the Option key, and then choose the app that I want to use as the default. So in this case Preview, which still shows that it's the default because it's the system default for opening this kind of file. And now I've reset it. So let's say I have this set to always open in Pixelmator Pro. Notice here I have a file with the same extension, but if I double click that, that opens in Preview. Changing the default for a file only changes it for that one file. It doesn't change it for other files of the same type. To change it for all files of the same type, select one of those files, go to File, Get Info, or use Command I. Then look for Open With. And here you'll see a similar list that we saw in the context menu. You have the default at the top and other apps here. You can then select the one you want to use. Let's try Acorn here. And then that will change it for that one file. But you also have a Change All button. Click that Change All button. You're prompted to confirm. And now when I look for this file I can see the default is Acorn. But also for this file it's changed as well. Notice now the system default with the little default in parentheses there is changed also. It's no longer Preview, although Preview is in the list. So you can do similar things for other kinds of files. For instance, here's a .mov file. If I control click on that I can see QuickTime Player is the default. But I have the third-party VLC player installed. When you install VLC it's kind of notorious for switching your system default to VLC, and then to get back to QuickTime Player you would actually have to select a file of that type, use Command I, change the Open With to QuickTime Player, and click Change All. Here I have a Microsoft Word file. Now I may not want these to be open to Word by default, or maybe I don't even have Word installed. If I look here you can see I do have Word installed and it's set as the default. But both Pages and TextEdit can open Word documents, and you may want to decide which one of those handles documents. If you get occasional Microsoft Word documents from colleagues at work and you just need to read the text that's in there, you may want to use the lightweight TextEdit as the default. But if you need to work with those files and you don't have Microsoft Word, you might want to set it as Pages, or perhaps you have something else like OpenOffice or LibreOffice installed on your Mac and you could set that as the default to handle those Word documents. So a few other things. Notice if I go to the context menu and choose Open With, these are all suggestions of apps that say they can handle this kind of file. But notice at the bottom it says Other. Select that, and then you're prompted to choose any application. It starts in the applications folder, but you can go anywhere in your hard drive now and select an application and say, yes, I do want to open this kind of file with this app. At the bottom here you can enable recommended applications or all applications, and you can see now all can be selected. And here you can also check always open with to set that file's default app. If you don't see those there, you have to click this options button to reveal or hide those. You have the same thing available when you do Command I. You have this list here, but at the bottom of the list you've got other, and you can choose from any app. If you liked this video,
Comment, questions about that?
Yes, I have a question. If
Okay.
if you set a Word document to always open in Pages, and you make a change in that document, then is that change also reflected in the original
No.
Word?
No, problem was with you open it in Pages and you make edits to it, converts it to Pages. You edit it, it saves it as Pages. It's not saved in the original document. Unless you do what is in Pages there, it's export, and you export it out as a DOC file.
Right, thank you.
Now, what a lot of people want to do is switch from from Word to LibreOffice, and they want it to open all the DOC files, but in LibreOffice, in the preferences, well, stop sharing your screen, Chris, and I'll show that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I will share my screen, and I'll show you what to do if you want to do LibreOffice. So I'm going to go to my applications, to LibreOffice. So if you want to replace Word with LibreOffice, you set, like he said, default app, open DOC, DOCX with LibreOffice. But what if you want to make a new document and you want it to automatically save as DOCX? So if you send it to somebody else, it opens in Word. So it just replaces your Word app. You have to set that in LibreOffice. Now I haven't launched LibreOffice on here, so I guess it has to verify. So just hold on a second. Okay, so when you're in LibreOffice, you go to Preferences. It's a little pokey the first time it starts. The second time it launches, it's not like this. Okay. LibreOffice. Come on, baby. Okay, so you go to Preferences, then in Load Save, you click that down, you'll see General, you will see Default File Format. I haven't set it on this machine, so by default it saves as this open document format, but you can change this. So text documents, oh, I did change it. Here's where you change it. For the text type, for the type of documents of text, I changed it to Word DOC. You might want to change this. I really should have made this DOC. Yeah, it's doc.docx. And then if you do Excel files, you can say for spreadsheets, I didn't change that on here yet, so I would change that to, now there's the XLS for the old Excel, and this is the new Excel 365 XLSX. So you should probably do that, and I should probably change the text file to the X format. Always save as Word. Where's my DOCX? It would be this here, not OpenOffice.
It's like the fourth one down, John. Word 2007
There it
to
is.
365.
So the Office 365 DOCX, that's the current file type for Word. So then you would say apply. Okay, so now if I make a new document, it will save a word processing document as a DOCX file. You send it to somebody who has Word on a new computer, opens right up. They don't know the difference. So that's what you would want to do if you want to swap out the free LibreOffice and get rid of your Word if you go to a new computer. Easy peasy.
So the latest version of Word is 2007?
No, it's 2007 to the latest version is
Oh,
365.
I got it.
Yeah, the file format came into being in 2007. So it's been out there for a while. The one before that was was DOC, not DOCX. Okay, so I will stop sharing. And Chris will start sharing. Okay. Go ahead and play. This is pretty cool stuff. If you don't have a user account, usually what I do when I work on somebody's computers, I make them an account called test with the password test. Because if you get locked out of your account for some reason and you're the only admin, you can't really get into your computer and fix things. So it hasn't happened to me recently, but back in the day that has happened before, and it's really difficult to get in to try to repair stuff. So you would have just a file, an account that you never use, so it never gets buggered up. And if anything's not working right on your computer and you're wondering if it's your preferences you should try to fix, you log into the test and, oh, it works in the test user, then I need to look in my user because that's where the problem lies. If it doesn't work in your test user, then don't bother trying to fix your preferences in your user folder because that isn't where it is. It's something wrong with the system itself. So that's a kind of a basic troubleshooting thing you try first when you're trying to figure out where to look.
Kenji's putting his hand up, Kenji.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. I was just looking to see if my hand disappeared when I moved it around like it does with virtual backgrounds. Sorry.
And make sure you make your test user an admin. Because it doesn't make if you make it not an admin, you go into test, you won't be able to fix things.
All right, ready to go?
Yep.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let me show you how to use user accounts on your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So if more than one person is using your Mac, each person should have their own user account. In addition, even if it's just you using your Mac, there may be some reasons why you may want to have a second user account as well. To create a user account, go to System Preferences and then Users and Groups. And here on the left you'll see a list of all of the current user accounts. At the top you should see Current User, and that's the account you're logged into now. Then you'll see other users under that. You may need to expand this list. To change anything here you need to unlock by entering your password. Now you can change anything for any one of these accounts. You can also add a new account with the plus button here. When you add a new account you get to choose between Administrator or Standard. Now the main difference between Administrator and Standard is that an Administrator account can create and remove other user accounts, also reset their passwords and make changes to the other accounts. A Standard account can only log into its own account. Both Administrator and Standard accounts can add applications and do most of the things that you normally do on a Mac. But it's a good idea to make every responsible adult who uses your Mac an administrator. So if something happens to one person, the other person is able to take control of the Mac entirely. However, you may want to use a Standard account for anybody else, perhaps a child that you want to set up parental controls and things for. This stops them from being able to override main system settings. Now when you create an account, you enter your full name, and then you want to create an account name. You want to keep that short and simple. It's going to be the name of the folder for your user account, and it's nearly impossible to change. So you just want to keep it really simple. Maybe just use your first name unless you also have somebody else in the household that has the same first name. Then you enter a password and verify the password. You can also provide a hint as well, but you should definitely write this password down somewhere and store it in a safe place. It's not a password you want to forget. Now the thing about user accounts is that under Users, every user account gets its own home folder. So there's the current one I'm using, but here's another one for another user account. If you had 4 user accounts you would see 4 different things listed here. So every user has their own personal storage space for files, videos, pictures, all of that. When somebody's logged in their account they can access their files, make changes to their files, but they can't access or make changes to your files. In addition, settings for apps and in system preferences are specific to the user account. So for instance in Safari, for each user account there's going to be a separate history, a separate set of bookmarks, a separate set of preferences for exactly how things are set up. Your browser homepage doesn't need to be the same as the browser homepage for your spouse or for your sibling. Even things like desktop backgrounds, screensavers, and all sorts of customizations will be specific to the user account. Also, everybody should have their own Apple ID, and each user account can be logged into a separate Apple ID. So when you log into your user account, you have access to all of your stuff in iCloud. And when somebody else is logged into their user account, they're logged into their Apple ID and they have access to their stuff in iCloud. So it's like having several different Macs but the same computer. You log in your account and everything is set up your way. It's your desktop background, it's your bookmarks, it's your settings, it's your email accounts, and it's your Apple ID. And then when somebody else is logged in with their account, they have all of their own things and don't have access to yours. Now here you can see that's the current user and I have another user here. Since both are admins, I can reset the password of the other person, which is handy. You also have an option down here as to whether or not you can get access to a user account if you forgot the password but you know your Apple ID password. And of course that Apple ID is assigned to that account. Now you also can go down to login items, and this has a lot of useful settings. First you've got automatic login, which should always be turned off for everybody. You should have to enter your password else your computer is not secure. Now no matter where your computer is located, how secure it is, you want to make sure that automatic login is off. You have to enter a password. Otherwise it's like leaving the front door of your house wide open. Also on the screen you've got the very important show fast user switching. You turn that on, then you get this little menu up here. You can set it to icon, full name, or account name. When you click here you can use fast user switching. Fast user switching is a great feature if you have multiple user accounts because what it allows you to do is switch to another account without logging out of the first one. Person A could be logged in, could be in the middle of writing a document. They've got a Pages window open, they've got Safari open, they're right in the middle of working. The other person could sit down, switch user accounts, check their email, and then the first person can come back, switch back, and everything is just as they left it. Another option to consider is guest user. That's handy if a visitor comes over and wants to use your Mac. They can then go from the login screen to log in as a guest user. This creates a brand new account on the fly. They can do what they want. They can check their email, they can surf the web, they can save files, edit things, but they only have access to this special user account that's there temporarily. They don't have access to your stuff. And then when they log out, when they're done, it deletes that account completely, erases it like it was never there. Now the problem with guest user accounts is if you're using File Vault, then guest users really aren't allowed. So instead if you're using File Vault, which you should if you have a portable Mac that ever leaves your house or office, then what you would want to do is if a guest really wanted to use your Mac because they really had no other option except to use your computer, is you would go in here and just quickly create a standard account for them. Allow them to use that standard account, and once they're done then you can remove that account. You should never let another person, no matter how much you trust them, use your account. It's not a matter of trust, you see. It could be just a simple mistake that they make that deletes file, that changes some sort of important setting or preference for you. Even things like your browser history, or websites that you're automatically logged into or can easily access using passwords stored in Safari. You don't want anybody to access, no matter how much you trust them. Now besides having multiple people using the same Mac, another reason to have a separate account is if you're in a situation like I am, where I create a demo account to be able to create tutorials for you, but you don't have to see all of my stuff. You can see everything set up in basically a typical default account. Other people may want to use it as a demo account to test things out, maybe even an account to use when making presentations, especially if the presentations involve showing different parts of Mac OS. Also keep in mind that if another family member primarily uses an iPhone or an iPad and they don't really use a Mac, you may still want to give them a user account on your Mac so they can get Mac specific things done once in a while whenever they need to. They can access all of the same information they have stored in iCloud on those other devices when they log in to the account on your Mac. And while they're not logged in, it's not really getting in your way at all. So the bottom line is that every person that uses your Mac should have their own user account and be logged into their own Apple ID on that user account. A handy thing to know is that if you buy an app with your user account, it's available to other users on that Mac as well. So you don't have to purchase the app twice. But in addition to that, if you use Apple's family sharing between your Apple IDs, you can share other things like music, movies, subscriptions, and so on.
Okay. Comments, questions? All good, huh? Okay, move on. How to use Do Not Disturb on the Mac. This is pretty common on your phone when I turn on the nighttime. I don't want my phone ringing or things texting me or reminding me notifications that wake me up or anything. So it also exists on the newer Macs. Better roll.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let me show you how to use Do Not Disturb on your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So Do Not Disturb is a way to prevent notifications from appearing on your screen while you're at a meeting, making a presentation, or you just don't want to be disturbed. For instance, say you're making a presentation online or at work and this pops up. It'd be great if there was a way to avoid that. In addition, any notifications you might get about text messages coming in, about emails, anything that's going to appear on the screen as a notification, you can use Do Not Disturb to make sure those don't get displayed. There are many ways to turn on Do Not Disturb. In macOS Big Sur, the way that's always there is to click on Control Center here at the top. And then you've got Do Not Disturb here. If you click on the little icon, it simply turns on Do Not Disturb. Notice that the time is now dimmed. I hear a lot of people asking, why is my time kind of grayed out? Well, that's because you have Do Not Disturb on. When Do Not Disturb is on, it's grayed. And when it's turned off, it's bright white. Now you can also click here and get more options. So you can turn on Do Not Disturb just for 1 hour and it will turn off automatically. That's usually the perfect amount of time for an online presentation or a meeting. You could also turn it on until the evening, so 7 p.m. or until tomorrow, so all the way through the night till 7 a.m. And then you have the option here to put it always on. No matter which one of these you choose, you can cancel it at any time. So if I turn it on for an hour, but I really only want it on for half an hour, I could always return here and turn it off. Or simply click here and it will turn it off. So any one of these options can be canceled pretty easily. Now there are many other ways to turn on Do Not Disturb. One way is to hold the Option key on your keyboard and click on the time. And that just turns it on. You have to use the Option key and click again to turn it off. Be careful when using that though, because it's easy to leave it on. I find it's much better to actually turn it on just for an hour or until this evening to make sure if I forget to turn it off, it'll go off automatically eventually. Now you can also drag and drop from Control Center to add more menu bar items. So I can drag and drop this right here and now I have this little crescent moon in the menu bar. Now I can turn on and off Do Not Disturb by clicking here and I have the same options. I can turn it on, say, for an hour. Now notice when it's on, the icon is bright white. But when it's off, the icon is dimmed. And once you're using that, the time here will no longer change. It'll be this icon that changes instead, although in the opposite way. So if you don't like the idea of having your time dim when Do Not Disturb is on, you can always add the little icon here and use that instead. Now you may be wondering if there are other options. Can you have it turned on for 30 minutes or for 2 hours or until the end of a weekend or something? And the answer is no, there's really not. There are just those options there. So for anything else, just turn it to always on and then remember to turn it off. You can always set a reminder to turn it off. Now you can also set a keyboard shortcut. If you go into System Preferences and then to Keyboard and then Shortcuts, click on Mission Control here on the left and there's Turn Do Not Disturb on or off and you can set a keyboard shortcut for that. Make sure it's checked and then you can click in here and assign any keyboard shortcut you want. I've got Option Shift Command D and you can see I can use that and it will turn Do Not Disturb on and off. You could also, of course, just ask Siri. Turn on Do Not Disturb.
Okay, I turned on Do Not Disturb.
Now there are also several settings for Do Not Disturb in System Preferences. To get to them, go to Notifications. The top item here is Do Not Disturb. Now you can set Do Not Disturb to automatically turn on at a certain time of day, like say 10 p.m., and then turn off again in the morning. That's really useful for quieting your Mac at night. You may want to set this even earlier, like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at the end of your workday. You can also have Do Not Disturb on whenever the display is asleep. So for a MacBook, if you simply close the lid, you're not going to hear those notifications. You can also set it to when the screen is locked. So for an iMac or a MacBook that you don't really close the lid, you can use that one instead. And then you can have it automatically turned on when mirroring to TVs and projectors. So if you're making presentations at work all the time, having this on will automatically turn on Do Not Disturb when you're presenting on a big screen. Now there's some options of what happens when Do Not Disturb is on. One of the things you can do is allow calls. So now FaceTime calls coming to your Mac will be allowed. You probably don't want this if you're doing in-person or online meetings all the time. But if you're using Do Not Disturb just to get more work done so you don't see all those notifications appearing, you may want to allow calls to come in even though notifications aren't. And also allow repeated calls means that if somebody tries to call you twice within 3 minutes, the call will go through. If you get a lot of spam calls or calls that usually aren't that important, this will stop the notifications for all of those. But then if somebody wants to get in touch with you in an emergency, if they call you twice, it will come through. A few things to note. Remember that even if you have the time set here or using one of these other options to automatically have Do Not Disturb go on, you can always turn it off manually. So if you're working late on a particular evening, you can turn off Do Not Disturb even though you have this checked. Also note that you're still going to get notifications. You're just not going to see them appear on your screen and they're not going to make any sound. You can always go into Notification Center and then you'll see them appear here at the top. So it's just not going to bother you with them, but you can still check manually to see what notifications have come in.
Alrighty then.
Got a question, John.
Okay.
John, does he ever tell you what version of the operating system he's relating to on a given video?
He's always using Big Sur. He's always using the latest. Presume that what he was presenting is always whatever's the newest.
Okay, so the new, okay.
So during the video, I just experimented in Catalina and found out that if I option click the notification icon in the top right corner, that turns on Do Not Disturb. And then if I...
You went muted.
Sorry, I was doing what I was saying as I was doing it, which took my finger off the space bar. So yeah, you can go to Do Not Disturb on Catalina by option clicking the notification icon, and then it grays out. And then if you click it again, without the option key, you'll see there are 2 sliders that have appeared at the top, one of which is Night Shift and the other one is Do Not Disturb.
Yeah, Big Sur has the new control center thing. That's obviously different than older systems. Okay, he didn't mention that fact, but every once in a while he'll say, oh, in older systems it'll work differently. He didn't mention that here, that it's different than what he was showing. Okay, next one, Mac Basics series, the pointer and the cursor.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's take a look at the pointer and cursor on your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So the pointer on your Mac is this little arrow that moves around on the screen when you use your mouse or trackpad. Now, very few people refer to this as the pointer. Most people refer to it as the cursor, but I'm going to show you in a minute that the cursor is actually something a little different. But it's perfectly okay to refer to this as either the pointer or the cursor. Some people refer to it as the mouse. The mouse is actually the physical device. The thing that you see on your screen is either the pointer or cursor. So whether you call it the pointer or the cursor, it's this little arrow you see moving around here as I move my finger on my trackpad. Use it to point to things to take an action on your screen. For instance, if I wanted to open this file, I would just move the cursor over it and then I could double click it. A single click will select it. So anytime you want to click something on the screen, there are 2 actions you need to take. One is to move the cursor over the item and the other one is to then click. You can also drag, which is to move the cursor over an item click and then drag around and then release. You can also click in a blank area in a lot of apps like in the Finder here and then drag a rectangle to make a selection of multiple items. Now the cursor will change to look different in different situations. For instance, let's say I'm going to move this file into this folder. You can see the cursor stays the same the whole time. But if I hold the Option key down, then I'm actually making a copy of the item. And you can see the cursor now has a little arrow with a green circle and a plus in it, indicating that I'm copying, not moving the file. But you could also see a different cursor if you move it to the edge of a window. If I move to the left edge here, notice how it changes to a two-headed arrow, left and right, indicating that I could drag the edge of this window left or right. If I move it to the corner, then it's on a diagonal because I can drag up or down. And the cursor even changes as you're dragging. The line here between the sidebar and the main part of the Finder window allows me to drag that as well. And you can see I get a cursor with a vertical line and left and right arrows. If I wanted to drag an item out of the Finder sidebar here, I can click and drag it. And notice if I move it far enough to the right, I get a circle with an X in it indicating that I'm about to remove this item from the sidebar. So pay attention to how the cursor looks to get an indication of what sort of action you're about to perform. When you go into a graphics program, like let's open Preview by double clicking to open this file here, you can see the cursor changes to crosshairs. That's to indicate that I can select a portion of an image by clicking and dragging. And you can see when I have a selection, if I move my cursor over any of the dots, the cursor changes to indicate which direction I can move the line or corner. Sometimes you even get a cursor that looks like a little spinning color wheel. This is the wait cursor and it's telling you that an action being performed by your Mac or the app that you're using is taking a little time and you can't interact with the app while that's going on. So you'll see that spinning cursor telling you to please wait. Now let's go into an app where I'm writing some text. Here's the Mail app and I'm going to compose a message. Now I've got actually two cursors on the screen, or technically a pointer and a cursor. The blinking line is the text cursor or just the cursor. You see the cursor is supposed to refer to an indicator on the screen that shows you where you're about to insert text when you type on the keyboard. Whereas the thing that you control with the mouse or trackpad is the pointer. But you can refer to them both as the cursor or maybe one as the cursor and the other as the text cursor. So when I type something, the line is showing me exactly where the next character is supposed to go. Now I can move the text cursor by using the regular cursor or pointer. So I can position it where I want and notice I have a different type of pointer now. I've got this kind of vertical line with a flourish at the top and bottom and a line crossing it in the middle. So I can click here and I move the text cursor there, showing that I can type and insert text at that point. Or if I use the delete key, I'm going to delete to the left from that point. Notice if I were to select some text by clicking and dragging, it actually creates this highlighted area showing what I have selected. And there is no text cursor. But if I were to type, it would simply replace the text that's highlighted. Or if I hit the delete key, it deletes that text. And you can see as soon as I do that, since nothing is selected, I get the blinking text cursor again at that location. In addition to using the pointer to be able to reposition the text cursor, you can also use the arrow keys left and right and up and down. Now there are some system preferences that have to do with the cursor. If you go to System Preferences and then Accessibility and then Display, there's a whole section for cursor and there are two settings. One is the cursor size. So you can actually make the cursor larger if you're having trouble seeing it on the screen. You also have the ability to shake the mouse across your desk or move your finger quickly on the trackpad to locate the cursor. So this is what happens when you do that. You can see the cursor grows temporarily. The idea is if you have a lot of things going on your screen or you have multiple displays, sometimes you can lose the cursor and not know where it is. So you can use this to quickly locate it. It draws your eye to it. Now notice this will not affect the size of the text cursor, but the text cursor size reflects the size of the text. Notice the size of the line here. I'm going to Command A to select all and then increase the size of the text. So now when I place the cursor in a spot, notice the vertical line is the size of the text there. So it's much taller. Meanwhile the pointer is still the same size, but you can adjust that where I just showed you there in System Preferences. Now I always get asked by people if there's a way to make your cursor stand out more, especially if you're making a presentation. You may notice that when I click here, you can see that with this little expanding red circle. That's actually done in my video recording software, ScreenFlow. So that's not something I'm seeing on my Mac while I'm recording. It's something that's added during editing and then exported in the video. Now the software you're using to share your screen may actually have some functions that allow you to highlight your cursor or highlight clicks. But if it doesn't, you can always go to the App Store, search for Cursor, and there are a whole variety of different apps in the Mac App Store that will change the look of the cursor or allow you to emphasize where you click.
Okay, good stuff. Very basic, but you always learn something when you look at those things. Any comments about that? Questions?
I tried to follow how he enlarged the size of the cursor. How did he do that again?
Do you want to show him, John, on your screen?
Volume was a little low for me.
He was asking how do you resize this cursor? Is it system preferences, accessibility?
Yeah, you're already sharing. You can do it.
Yeah, accessibility.
And display.
Display, was it display?
Yeah, he said, okay.
Cursor size, there you go.
Yeah, we always try to make that bigger when we're doing demos. Sometimes I forget to do that. And I'm tempted, I like the thing when he clicks on something or types keys on the keyboard that shows up. And that's part of his ScreenFlow capture thing, and that's pretty complicated. And like you said, I need to find something like that on the App Store for demo and stuff. I think
Isn't there a setting somewhere where you can select a left-handed pointer?
I don't think in the system. There's that's probably a third party thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably in the Logitech
That's
mouse
built
control.
into the mouse settings. The mouse settings is either the left or the right mouse button is the
He doesn't have a
I don't have a mouse connected.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that built in.
On mine, there's a primary mouse button setting on the mouse settings,
Yeah.
and it's a left-right type thing.
Right. So if you're left-handed and you can switch the 2-button mouse to make the primary on the right instead of on the left.
Exactly.
I seem to remember years ago where you could switch the direction of the pointer.
Yeah, I seem
I
to
haven't
remember
seen it
that
in a
too.
long time.
Yeah, me either. People don't on the Mac are not used to a 2-button mouse, and they get the older mouse that didn't actually, one side of the mouse, it wasn't obvious it was a separate button. It gets confusing, and usually I just turn that off. Or you squeeze. There's the older mouse you could squeeze on the side to have things happen, and then like expose would come up, and they don't use that feature. You can turn that off. I could probably plug in this mouse from here.
No, I've got it, John. I've got a mouse plugged in. I just switched mine on.
Yeah, but you don't have this. You don't have the squeezable sides.
Squeezable sides.
Yeah, hold on.
I've got
yeah, you have the magic mouse, which is a trackpad on the top.
Yes.
So you should have left and right mouse clicks. They're switchable in there.
Secondary, click on right side and stuff.
Right.
Click on left side. Oh.
Right. Unshare, and I'll show you what the old school mouse looks like.
Okay.
Okay, so I will start share. And so I just plugged in a standard mouse from this other computer. And so let's see what I get from mouse. Where's my mouse?
End of row 4.
Where is my mouse? mouse. Okay, so yeah, this is a really old mouse that doesn't have the squeezable sides or anything else. It's just a standard stupid mouse. It doesn't have even a second click. Okay,
So in his video, he showed that you could copy files by option dragging them, which reminded me that in one of the earlier videos that we showed, he showed where you could move files to instead of copying them to a different drive. And I thought that was by option dragging, but that doesn't work for me.
So whatever this,
if you option drag, you will copy it. If you command drag, you will move it.
and it's the so that's changed from way back when. So if you drag something, whatever the happens normally, if you hold down the option key, it reverts to the other way. So if you going to move it to another drive, it automatically copies. But I believe if you hold down the option key, it moves it.
It
also depends on whether or not you have
Of course,
a
the
key
control
or a
key,
remote
the control.
volume.
It used to be with no key, it would just move if you
Right.
were on the same drive, but that's changed. So the option
Right.
copies and the command moves it.
It used to be when you drug something out of the applications folder, it would move it out. Now it doesn't. It makes an alias. Because
Right.
people used to do that all the time, and that
Right.
wasn't what you wanted to do.
And they forgot to tell you when they changed it.
Yeah.
It also reacts differently if you're on a local drive versus a remote drive.
Right. So what happens is the option key does the opposite. So if you're going to an external, it copies it, but if you hold the option key, it moves it. It reverses it. Whatever is normal, it makes it do the other way, I believe. You can tell by what the cursor changes.
On your own system. So if you drag a file on your own system, it moves it by default.
Right. And
And
if
if
you hold
you
the
drag
option,
a
it makes a copy. Right.
And if you drag a file on a remote drive to someplace else on the remote drive, it moves it. But if you drag a file from the remote drive to the local drive, it copies it.
Oh, if you move from your internal to an external, it copies. It makes a copy.
Right.
So if you hold the option key, it moves it. I believe.
I think it's the command key.
Yeah, you may be right. I just do it by memory. I can't remember what I'm doing.
Okay, next video.
Yep. This is tips for getting the most out of the Finder sidebar.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's take a close look at the Finder sidebar. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So when you're looking at files and folders in the Finder window, you'll see the sidebar on the left. If you don't see it here, you can hide it and show it by going to View, and then there's Hide Sidebar or Show Sidebar. You can also adjust the size of the Finder sidebar by clicking on the line to the right of the sidebar, and you could drag it right or left. If you want to get it back to its default size, just double click the line and it will snap to that position. Now, one of the problems I see people having with the Finder sidebar is they can't find something there because a category is closed. Notice that you've got categories: Favorites, iCloud, Locations, and Tags. You can close one of those by simply moving your cursor over the name of the category, like iCloud, and then this button will appear. The button's not there if the cursor isn't over it. So you have to move your cursor over it and then you'll see it, and then you can click on it and it will either collapse or expand that category. So if you don't see, for instance, iCloud Drive, then it might be simply because you have to expand that category to show the items under it. Now, one way to customize what's listed here is to go to Finder Preferences, and from there go to Sidebar. And here you'll see Show these items in the sidebar, and there's a bunch of checkboxes. The categories match the categories you see here. So under Favorites there are checkboxes for each one of these things. So if you don't want to see recents, or you do, you could check or uncheck this box. you can do that with all of these other items here as well to add or remove these. Now the same thing here in iCloud and in Locations. Now these are standard items. If you have custom items, they won't be listed here. We'll look at those in a minute. But do note that if you remove all of the items, then the category disappears. So for instance, if I uncheck all 3 iCloud things, iCloud is completely gone. Now the favorites is kind of a catch-all category. You can add anything you want to that. You can even move items, say from iCloud or Locations up to favorites. So for instance, you can move your Documents folder from iCloud up into favorites. It'll be there instead of in iCloud. So if you'd rather not see iCloud Drive and Desktop, you can just close those or remove them there in Finder Preferences, but have Documents here in Favorites. Now you can also move any folder you want to Favorites. So for instance, here I am on my Documents folder. Now let's say I want to move these 2 project folders to Favorites. I can drag and drop the folder and put it into Favorites. Now notice when I go to do this, if I'm over one of the items here like this, then I'm actually dragging it into that folder. So dragging it like this would actually put Project Beta inside Project Alpha. It would actually move the files and folders in there. But if I move so that I'm below or above one of these items and you see a line like this with a little circle to the left, that means I can add it now to the Finder sidebar. The actual folder itself is exactly where it's always been. Things aren't actually located in the Finder sidebar. These are simply shortcuts or aliases to that item. So now if I want to get to Project Alpha or Project Beta, I can do so easily here by using the Finder sidebar. Now to remove items, it's pretty easy as well. You can simply drag and move it far enough to the right to where you see the X appear and then drop and it removes it. It's still in Documents. I haven't moved the actual item itself. It's just the Finder sidebar alias that's moved. You can also right click, 2-finger click on the trackpad or hold down the Control key and click and bring up the context menu for any one of these. And one of the items you get here when you do that in the sidebar is Remove from Sidebar. Now one thing people may want to do is double list something that's in iCloud Drive. Like for instance, you may want to have your Documents folder in Favorites and iCloud. But if I move it up like this, you could see it now is just in Favorites, not in iCloud. Instead, leave it in iCloud and then go to the level above, in this case iCloud Drive. There's my Documents folder. If I drag that then to Favorites, now I've got Documents in Favorites and iCloud. Notice when I click on it in one or the other, it's the same. Just 2 different ways of accessing the same thing. Now one of the ways to use the Finder sidebar is to drag and drop items into the folders here. So for instance, if I wanted to move something to my desktop folder, I could simply drag it from the Finder window right here and it would put it into the desktop folder. Matter of fact, if I hover enough, it will actually open the desktop folder and then I could move it there myself or drop it into a subfolder. Now in addition to putting folders under Favorites, you can also put other things like applications and files. So let's go to the Applications folder. I can use the sidebar for that since I've got it there. And let's say I want to put numbers in the sidebar under Favorites. If I drag it there, it won't actually work. But if I use the Command key and then drag, I can drop it in there and I have the application there now. What can I do with that? Well, one thing I could do is click it and it will launch the application. The other thing I could do is I could drag and drop files onto it to open up that file. You could also add files to Favorites there with the same trick. Hold the Command key down and drag the file there. And now you've got that file located there. And then to open that file, all you need to do is click it and it opens up. Now another thing you'll see in the sidebar is tags. You'll see a category here under tags that you can open and close. And you can view all the files that use that tag by simply clicking on the tag and it will show you all those files. It's kind of an alternative way of organizing things. You can select a file and then you could either use the tags button at the top of the Finder window to add and remove tags, or you can use Command I or File Get Info and here at the top you can add tags. You can also add them when you save a file in most apps. Now you can customize which tags appear here to make this more useful. Go back to Finder Preferences and go to Tags and you'll see Show these tags in the sidebar. So you can pick exactly which tags you want to see, just like maybe these 3 here, instead of having all of your tags listed. Also, if you go to Sidebar here, there's an option you can't quite see because it's off the bottom of the screen. But you can check off whether or not All Tags is shown here at the bottom. The All Tags item, if you click that, will then give you another sidebar that lists all the tags and then you can pick one of those tags to show. Also, you can control click, right click, or two finger click on a trackpad on one of the tags to get a variety of different options here, including removing it from the sidebar, deleting the tag completely, renaming the tag, or setting the tag's color. Now, while you can add items here under favorites, you could also add items under iCloud if the folder is in iCloud Drive. So for instance, we're looking here at my Documents folder, which is in iCloud Drive, which means that this folder is actually in iCloud Drive, which means I can actually add it here to iCloud instead of favorites. You could also rearrange these categories. If you'd rather iCloud be at the top, you can click and drag iCloud up here to the top, and now it's above favorites. When you click on one of these, of course, opens up that item, and now the Finder window is taken over by that. But you can also have it open up another tab by holding the Command key down and clicking. So I'll Command click Documents, and now you can see the Pictures tab is still there. Documents is a new tab. You could also control click, right click, or two finger click on a trackpad, and you can use Open and New Tab. Now there's an interesting behavior if you option click one of these. So if I go, say, between Documents and Pictures like that, you can see I'm in the same Finder window. But if I option click on Pictures, you can see it reopens the Finder window, and the Pictures folder is actually a slightly different size and a slightly different location. Let's exaggerate that a little bit more and put it here. Now if I option click Documents, you can see it closed that Finder window and opened a new Finder window with Documents set up just like it was before. So I can go back and forth between them like that. However, if I just click on Pictures, then you can see it uses the current window and just loads the Pictures folder up in it. Now another place you'll see the Finder sidebar is when you go to open or save a document. Let's launch Pages here, and it's going to prompt me to open a document. Notice that this is kind of like a little mini Finder window. I've got the sidebar here on the left, so any special folders and things I put in favorites will appear here. You also might see some extra things, like for instance, it knows to put the special Pages folder in iCloud here under iCloud in addition to whatever else you've got. But if there's a special folder you want to appear here, then you can make that happen. For instance, let's go ahead and add this project folder back here. Now when I go to Pages, you can see it's there, and I can just simply click on it and have access to those files real easily whenever I open Pages. Now when I go to save a document, I get the same thing. I get the sidebar here on the left, including any folders that I've created. So I can access things like Documents or the special folder that I added to my favorites here. So if you include the folders that you use the most under Favorites, you'll find it a lot easier to open and save files as you do your work throughout the day. And note that the keyboard shortcuts Option Command S to hide and show the sidebar work when you're in these dialogues as well.
Okay. Anything to say about that? Questions, comments?
I'm going to have to watch that one again. That went awfully fast.
Yeah.
One problem
Yeah.
I've noticed with Big Sur is when you open, go to open a file or save a file, the column of the sidebar is very small and you can't resize it. So if you have a folder name that's very long, you can't see much of it.
Okay. Anybody else? We still got
One more video.
only one more. Okay.
So in Big Sur, does default folder X still work?
No idea. That's been around for a long time. I would presume that he would update
What are
it.
you referring to?
John, when I open up my Finder sidebar, I see iCloud Drive under Favorites, and I don't see just plain iCloud at all in the sidebar. Is that important?
iCloud Drive is part of iCloud.
What OS are you running?
Mac OS what?
Sierra.
Sierra, yeah.
Hi, Sierra.
High Sierra, yeah. This
High
is High
Sierra.
Sierra. I don't have iCloud either.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then that's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's different in older systems.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks.
Okay, this one's pretty good information. Everybody should be using a password manager, or either 1Password or LastPass. Or
Yeah, how's that LastPass working for you, John?
so far, no problem.
Yeah, well, you wait till next month.
Well, no, well, so if anybody doesn't know, LastPass is in the free version. You're going to have to choose either works on all your Mac OS, all your Macs, or all your iOS, but not both for free. If you want to work on both, you got to pay. I hardly ever use it in iOS, to tell you the truth. iPad and iPhone, 2 items, and I hardly ever use it.
Wow, I use
Mac
it all the
OS, I
time
use
on
it
my
I
iPad.
use it on like 10 machines. So yeah.
No, I use it on both. A lot on my iPad, a lot on my iPhone.
But you're using 1Password.
Yeah.
And you're paying a subscription.
I'm not paying nothing.
Oh.
I bought the iOS apps. I think I bought
So that's because you're still in High Sierra. If you go forward, then they require you to buy a new version, and you got to pay again.
Yeah, I think they want a subscription or something. Yeah, I may have to pay. I'm still on version 6 or something. I think the latest version of 1Password is 7. But you know, honestly, every time they update 1Password, it just gets worse. So it's like I prefer version 3 to version 4 in iOS, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really happy where I'm at. I'll just stay.
To tell you the truth, Safari and Keychain continues to get better. So for most people, if you just use Safari and you don't use Firefox or Google Chrome or other, non-Apple products, then it's fine. And then if you use the Safari passwords, then that will work over on your iPad and your iPhone, and you're all good. So even more, I'm not going to switch to Safari only, because I use Chrome. I use Firefox sometimes, and
I use Firefox exclusively on everything except iOS devices where I still use
Safari. So you can't use Safari book passwords because you don't use Safari.
No.
So you have to use something else.
But you still need some kind of password manager to save app passwords. Not all passwords are just for use in a browser.
Yeah, you got to have a password manager these days. It's like, I can't see how you could not use one. Then you'd have to look at your piece of paper every time and type it in.
Or
every
worse
time you
still,
go there.
Use the same password for all the sites, which is the worst thing
do
you
all
could
the
do.
wrong things.
Yeah.
Use 1Password everywhere, and no, that don't work.
Didn't somebody recently say that all you needed was Keychain?
Well, Safari Passwords does store your stuff in Keychain. That's where it stores it. Keychain also stores other things like your mail passwords and your FTP passwords and other FileMaker passwords and other things besides your Safari passwords.
So using Keychain alone, is that a problem?
Keychain is where Safari stores its passwords.
Okay, so it's Safari. Okay, so if you're using Firefox, you can't go into that.
Firefox doesn't store your stuff in the Keychain.
Right. Okay.
It has its own place where it stores its passwords. Not because it's not an Apple product.
Okay, there's Keychains. I mean, does Firefox's password holder decent? My wife uses it all the time. I don't use it at all.
I would think absolutely not.
Well, no, hang on. Firefox is good. I think their
Okay, now wait a
password is
minute.
good, but it's
By
not.
default, originally Firefox didn't even require you to set a master password. That's really bad.
Yeah.
And if you want to sync them to another computer, you have to make a Firefox account and sync it through that. So who knows how secure their online password manager is.
And then it only works in a Firefox browser.
And it only works in Firefox. It doesn't go as...
Well, there's Firefox for iOS. But if you're using an app that asks for a password, you don't have like the password manager access on the keyboard on iOS, right? So it's limited to in browser only. You can use passwords outside of browsers in apps and stuff, which is where like 1Password works great.
Well, we watch the video and then get to the discussion.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's take a look at using the built-in Safari Password Manager. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 800 supporters. Go to macmost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So to keep all of your online accounts secure, you should be using strong, unique passwords for each site. To do this, you really need to be using a password manager. Now you don't need to get a third-party password manager as you've got one built into the Safari browser on your Mac, and it also talks to the Safari browsers on your other devices. So let's take a look at how it works. Here I have an example registration page like you're going to sign up for a new website. Usually you're asked for your email as your user ID. Then you're asked to enter a password and verify it. Now in Safari, if you click here to enter in a password, you may be prompted right away asking if you want to generate a random password. But even if you're not, you'll look on the right here and see this little key button. Click that and you can request a password. So let's suggest a new password and you can see how Safari generates a random password and enters it in here, both in the password and in the confirmation field. It's so important that you use a computer generated random password like this. Anything you come up with in your head is going to be far more likely to be guessed than an actual random password. The only downside is it's hard to memorize and enter a password like this. But with a password...
Can you hear me?
I could still hear it.
Can hear you, but can't hear him.
I didn't lose the audio from him.
Okay.
I can hear it too.
Okay.
Good night.
I lost it.
Okay, that's bizarre. I'll carry on.
Yeah, I can hear Gary.
What was hearing these loud pops?
Manager, you never have to. The password manager, in this case the Safari browser itself, is going to enter the password for you. You don't have to memorize it. You never have to type it. So we see how Safari gave us a randomly generated password pretty easily.
We have problems.
I'm still hearing him fine. That's weird.
That is weird.
You may have to go
Me
it
too.
and watch it.
That's impossible.
That is weird because he's got it stopped.
I hear him.
I hear him.
I don't hear.
I've stopped it now, but it's weird that.
Where's John?
Didn't hear him.
Where's John?
I hear him.
But there was some weird audio.
Other noise.
before
Somebody else talking too.
These loud pops before that too.
Yeah, I heard those pops.
Mute everybody else.
Who? Me? Not me.
Everybody's muted now, so unmute yourself again.
Okay, go ahead and play it, Chris. Everybody's muted.
But how do we store it? Well, you don't have to do anything additional to store it. All you need to do is finish the form and then Safari will remember this password. So now let's say we go back to the site and we have to log in again. I'm going to click here to enter my email. You can see Safari recognizes that this is the place to enter my ID and my password. And it actually...
Okay, shall I stop screen sharing and screen share again?
Yeah, restart. It's something coming from you that's not right.
No, everybody else is hearing it. So.
I don't know. Just unshare your screen.
Some people are not hearing it. Some people are.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, here goes.
Shows me a list of passwords associated with the site, including the one I just entered in. So I just select this email address and it enters in the email address as my ID and the password right here. And now I click login and I can log in. I didn't even have to see the password, let alone type it. So where can you see a list of your passwords? Well, if I go to Safari, Preferences, and then I click on Passwords at the top, then I have to enter in my user account password. And now I see a list of passwords that Safari has stored. You can see the username here and the password is hidden. Here's that one I just created. By selecting it, it actually shows me the password. I can double click it or click Details here to make changes if I want. Also notice I have the ability to add manually a password. And I can also remove an entry there. Now what would happen if I already have an account at a site but I haven't yet stored it in Safari? When I go to sign in, it'll remember that password as well. So I'll enter in a user ID and I'll type the password that I already know. And I'm going to type a weak password here on purpose to demonstrate. And I'll click Login. Now you get this prompt here asking whether or not you want Safari to save the password. So I'm going to click Save Password. If I clicked Not Now, it would ask me again the next time I logged in. But the other option there is to never bother me about saving this password ever. Now when I go to Safari Preferences Passwords, you can see it's saved it there. Notice I have this little yellow caution symbol here. Why? Because I entered in a very weak password there. And if I click on it, you can see this password is easily guessed. It'll also give me other security alerts, like if the password I'm using is insecure because it's currently being used to break into accounts. In other words, I didn't create a unique password, I'm reusing one, or perhaps my account itself has been compromised. Whenever you see one of these caution symbols, you should change the password on the website. To do that, just go to the website and go through whatever the process is for that site to change your password. When you do that, Safari is going to prompt you to save the new password, just like I showed you before when you used a password at a site for the first time. And by the way, if you click the option not to save the password, this is what you get. It saves the site with no username and password set to never saved. If you want to reset that so you can save the password later on, all you need to do is select it and then remove. And now you'll be able to save that password the next time you log into that site. So saving a password in Safari protects you in a few different ways. First, it allows you to have a random unique password for each site, which is the most secure way to do passwords. They can be these long random strings of characters because you're saving them in this password manager. You don't have to type them manually. Because let's face it, if we had to type all of our passwords manually, we would probably all use shorter passwords that look like words or dates or names, and we'd probably reuse the same password over and over again. Using a password manager means everyone can be long, random, and unique. This also protects you from phishing attacks. The way a phishing attack works is, say you get an email that seems to be from a website and it tells you there's a problem, you need to log in right away. You click on a link in that email and it takes you to something that looks just like that website. You can't tell it's not. And if you look at the URL, maybe it's even close to the actual URL. Maybe instead of, say in my example here, macmost.net, it's macmost.xyz123.net. And you think you're at the right place. But you're actually at somebody else's website entirely. Then you enter your email address and your password. Now they've captured your ID and password. They've stored it and they're going to go back and try to log into the actual site. How using a password manager like we are here in Safari protects you from that is when you go to a site like macmost.xyz123.net, it will look up the actual site. You can't fool it. So it's looking for xyz123.net and it can't find a password for that site. So it doesn't give you anything here to be able to log in. Now another great thing about storing your passwords in Safari is it syncs across all of your Apple devices using iCloud. To sync the passwords to your other Apple devices, go into System Preferences and then to your Apple ID and make sure Keychain is turned on. The passwords are stored in something called the keychain. You actually have an app on your Mac called Keychain Access that allows you to look at the keychain. But for most users you never have to use that. Just to access the passwords in the Safari preferences. And as long as this keychain functionality in iCloud is turned on, it should sync the passwords to iCloud and then to your other Apple devices like your iPhone or iPad. So when you store a website password, say on your Mac, you also have access to it on your iPhone. So here for instance you see me going to the same site on my iPhone and it prompts me to use the password that I've stored. And also if you go and sign up for a website on your iPhone, it will suggest password and save it so then it's available on your Mac. Also on your iPhone you can go into settings and there you can go to the passwords section and find those entries. So if you need to be able to see the password and perhaps copy and paste it into an app or maybe into a different browser, you can. So I'm often asked which password manager you should use on your Mac. And there are a lot of good ones out there. 1Password and LastPass are really good password managers and there are others as well. But for most users, if you're not using a password manager now, start off by just using Safari. Let Safari save your passwords. You get the primary functionality available in all password managers built into your Mac, synced automatically without having to pay for and learn a new app. But if you want, you can still use a third-party password manager and Safari at the same time. That's what I do. When I create a new password at a site, I save it in both 1Password and in the Safari password manager. It's easy to do so. It's just 2 clicks instead of 1. And then most of the time I find it easiest just to let Safari enter the password in when I go to log into that site again. But I also know I've got it saved in my other password manager as well. But for most Mac users, if you're not using a password manager now, just start using Safari to save your passwords and let that allow you to have good, strong, unique, random passwords for every website and service you use.
Alrighty then.
So which of the passwords, the outside ones, my husband doesn't have a Mac, so I'd have to have a password manager. Which is your favorite or one you recommend?
1Pass.
One
LastPass.
password? Okay,
One
Both.
Password and LastPass both work in all different browsers and all types of computers, and now they actually kind of cost the same if you only want to use a PC and a Mac. I believe those are desktop computers
right.
and would be no cost. I'm not sure if the free version goes Mac to PC. I haven't investigated
How
that.
much do you have to pay for it?
The new price is $3 a month. I think that's the same as 1Password.
That's not bad.
For existing LastPass users, they're going to let you come in at, I think, $2 a month.
Okay.
And there's other ones too, but I got to tell you a horror story about password managers. Some guy was using, a client of mine was using a password manager that I never heard of on iOS on his phone. And back years ago, remember when they changed to iOS, switched to only 64-bit apps and
Yeah.
killed the 32-bit apps?
Yeah.
Guess what?
Oh
It was
my
a 32-bit
goodness.
app, and he upgraded the OS, and the thing would no longer open. He had no backup or no way to access his password.
Oh my God.
It was a bad deal.
Janet has her hand up.
Thank you. Doesn't anybody get nervous using those automatically generated stupid passwords that you can't just type in? And that scares me.
I do too. It scares me too.
No, the automatic password generators are generated on your computer, and they're just random numbers.
Yeah, but try and type that in somewhere.
Well, the whole point of a
reliable.
password manager is you don't
I
ever
know.
type it in. You never look at it.
Yeah,
But
if everything goes well in the
With
perfect
the
Right,
world.
password manager, you do not have to use an
Right.
automatically generated password. You can
I don't
I
do
know.
that.
password.
I make my password something that I might have a hope of guessing.
Well, that's right. That's what I do.
But they still aren't as strong as the random one. You got to make them unique, something different for every site. You don't want to use the same
Supposedly
one.
longer is better.
Longer the
too.
better. Numbers and letters, uppercase, lowercase. Some places require you to. Apple ID requires an uppercase letter and a number. Other places require other things.
Right.
And
But I
something
would
you
rather
do,
have it be words that I can recognize rather than.
but using words
gibberish.
that you can recognize make it easier to guess.
Right. Words in the dictionary make it easier for people for dictionary attacks.
Well, yeah, but a lot
The
of them are
ones you need to
shortened or
worry
changed.
about are your bank, Amazon, PayPal, something where they could spend some money. Those need to be good, hard, different passwords.
Right.
If somebody breaks into your Twitter account, what are they going to do? Tweet as you? And if you're not a famous person and they're not targeting you to take over your Twitter account because you're a famous person, then who the hell cares? The other thing you can do is, I recently, as much of a pain in the ass it is, I turned two-factor on everything. My Twitter, my Google, my Facebook, my bank, I turned it on everywhere. Because there's just so much hacking going on lately.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't log into different devices or change stuff, it's not a big deal.
And
Every time I go to Amazon or I want to spend some money on PayPal, they send me a 6-digit code that's good for 10 minutes. If I don't type it in, I got to do it again.
Guess what happens when you change phones? Say
Yeah,
you
it
give
asks you
your
to read.
phone to your cousin and you get a new phone. You don't realize it, but all the devices that use that phone number, you're going to get locked out of, or you may. It's just, you need to keep that in your mind. Your phone is connected to all these accounts. And so if you have a problem with the account,
That's
you
for
don't have the
security.
phone.
If you go to a new device, like I go to a different computer and I log into my bank to check something and say, oh, we don't recognize this device, send me a code, you put it in and it lets you in as a new device. Even though it's the same device, you upgrade the OS or switch to a different browser, it thinks it's a different device. So it's protecting you. If you
not
use
saying
the same
don't do
browser
it.
and the same computer to log into your bank all the time, usually it kind of just remembers you unless you turn on two-factor.
The example is my wife died a couple of years ago and I gave her phone up, and I'm messing around trying to gain access to some of her accounts, and I got locked out of the email because it's sending the code to her own
Oh, it's
phone
sending the
number.
two-factor to her phone that doesn't exist anymore. Then you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
Now you have a
Yeah.
problem, right?
So that's not actually the device, that's the phone number.
Correct.
It's whatever's logged in. Like you can have the two-factor go on Apple devices. Apple sends it to all your devices that are registered with your Apple ID in theory. A lot of places will say, send me an SMS text to this phone number or send me an email to this address. It depends. They're all different on how you set them up. Sometimes you put in multiple things and you get the choice of where to send it. Like sometimes they put in my Google Voice number and my iPhone number, and sometimes I send it to one and it won't go through and I have to send it to the other for whatever reason.
I think what's humorous is when they send the code to the device you're on. I'm wondering how
You think
secure
that's
that is.
insecure, right?
Yeah.
But they do that.
Yeah.
I always thought that was questionable. If somebody had your device and was trying to break in, they would send it to them.
Say, Bill, if your volume is a little low, if you
Yeah, it
click
is.
on if you click on the right arrow, the arrow to the right of the mute button in the bottom left corner, there's a slider there to turn up your volume.
Yeah, I was me too. It was low.
Oh, okay. How I have a volume button on my microphone.
That's better.
Also.
That's better right now.
There you go.
Thank you.
So I've been using Chrome, and I had all my my credit cards entered in the app. So when I start to enter a credit card number on a buy field on a website, it automatically pops up a dialog asking me which credit card I want to use, and I pick one, and then it asks me for the 3 or 4 digit code on the back of the card, and then it fills in the form. I thought after I set up Apple Pay on my Mac from last week, that then when in Safari, I'd see something similar where my credit card would pop up automatically, but I'm not seeing that. Is there some way to do that? I know OnePass will let me do it, but I'm wondering if Safari will let me do it.
Put in the extra stuff like the CVC code?
No, put in the credit card number itself.
No, Safari doesn't have a place to put in that information. 1Password does,
yeah.
I believe. I know LastPass does.
Let's check in preferences in
iCloud.
autofill. There's a credit card button.
In Safari?
Yes.
I think Safari puts it in.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to add your.
But my the CVC number.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. I have that turned off. So okay.
I hardly ever buy anything from anywhere that doesn't have a PayPal button or a Pay with Amazon button, because they have your stuff, where to ship it, and your number, and the vendor doesn't get that information. They just say he paid, ship it. I almost try always to use PayPal.
I paid with my watch the other day at the grocery store. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Did I just see a flower next to your face? That's cool.
You weren't here at the beginning of the meeting. Everybody was playing with their, what do they call them? No, not avatars.
Emojis?
There's stuff you can stick on your
filters.
Video filters.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
like
everybody, we're in 2 hours. We want to stop the recording and we'll hang on a little bit here. We got some questions. Any new questions in the chat?
I got a question. Anybody on Mojave having some new troubles with the App Store where it hangs?
No, not me. Oh, Bruce is not on
There's
Mojave
a thread
anymore.
there's a thread online about that. I opened a case with Apple, hopefully it won't take 3 months to fix like the last one.
What was the problem, Ken, that you were talking about?
If you go to update or download a piece of software from the App Store, you'll get the sort of grayed out circle and it'll just sit there and hang. Then if you quit the App Store and go back in, then it's blank. If you
I
restart
see
it all, it
some
comes back up again.
I see wonkiness in the App Store on several different Mac OS versions. It's like, okay, it says that there's a GarageBand update and the number 1 stays on the App Store and you go there and it's there and you try to get it. It says, no, that's for a newer version. It won't go away.
Yeah, I've
multiple OSs and computers.
I have I have an update for EtherCheck, and I've tried multiple times and it couldn't do it.
So there is part of a way to fix that, is just take EtherCheck and put it in the trash and empty the trash and then go to the store and rebuy it. It's free.
It won't download even a new buy. What I did find to do it, I have a Mojave on a flash drive that hasn't had all the security updates. I booted from that, went to the App Store, it worked. I then went back to my internal system and that seemed to unlock it, but only for that one app. Anything else I try to download locks up. There's a thread on Macintosh about it. I called Apple and I tried to refer the guy to the thread. He says, if I wanted that, I would have asked for it.
Oh, geez.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to call. They're supposed to call me tomorrow morning with an update on it. If they don't, I've got a guy in their executive relations I'm going to call. Hopefully this one won't take 3 months like the last one did. They fixed their server on the last problem.
Bruce?
Does Lee have his hand up or just waving to us?
Yes, he does. I wanted to add a comment about two-factor authentication, and that is that if you ask for it to be presented in text message, you don't even have to see it, because it provides a button that says take from message. So you don't even have to know what it is. You just touch that.
I haven't seen that.
It's automatically.
And what browser are you using?
Safari.
Really?
If you provide your cell phone number and ask for it to be sent as text message, it goes ding, and you see a little button come up and it says take from message.
Huh.
You click that and it's done.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Oh, you don't
I
have to
haven't
type
been using.
it in?
I haven't been using Big Sur as where I'm doing most of this, so I haven't seen that.
Well, I'm on Big Sur too.
Yeah, but I'm only using Big Sur when I'm doing the Zoom meeting. Normally I'm on this High Sierra machine.
I need to find out how I can get that 1 gigabit.
Go to sonic.net and check, see if you're.
Yeah,
available.
see if it's available in your area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bruce, did you get back your Mac Mini? Did it get fixed?
I'm taking it back in. Believe it or not, when I brought it back, I couldn't bring it up till I connected everything wired. And then it came up just fine. It was lightning fast. And I left everything I didn't load anything. I didn't restore anything. I left it like that. In the morning, I got up and touched the keyboard. Nothing happened. No, the mouse is lit up. I can see red underneath there, but nothing happened. So I called them and they did all kinds of stuff. And they said, finally bring it back in again. So it's going into 11 tomorrow.
All right.
Now that it's mine. I hear others work just fine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe they'll replace it.
I don't know. I told them it's undependable. It's not fun anymore. That kind of stuff.
Oh, that's terrible.
Wow.
Okay. So I think at this point we will stop the recording because we're in over 2 hours, and then we'll say.